We attacked a submarine, and that was a drug-carrying submarine built specifically for the transportation of massive amounts of drugs. Just so you understand, this was not an innocent group of people. I don't know too many people that have submarines.
On October 17, 2025, U.S. President Donald Trump met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House. Amid the discussion, Trump, known for his penchant for digression, unexpectedly brought up an issue far removed from their agenda, something happening in the Caribbean. Speaking to a group of reporters, Trump stated,
We attacked a submarine, and that was a drug-carrying submarine built specifically for the transportation of massive amounts of drugs. Just so you understand, this was not an innocent group of people. I don't know too many people that have submarines.
The attack ended in 2 fatalities, while 2 others managed to survive, only to be scooped up by a U.S. military helicopter. Upon investigation, it was found that the 2 survivors were from Ecuador and Colombia. Trump quickly made it clear that they wouldn't be serving prison time in the U.S. On Truth Social, he said, "The 2 surviving terrorists are being returned to their countries of origin, Ecuador and Colombia, for detention and prosecution." Some people, often with a bleeding heart, may argue, "Oh, this is too cruel. What if they were just ordinary fishermen? What if they were forced into it? This is a violation of human rights." Trump addressed these concerns directly, sending a clear message to the American public and the world. He emphasized that the people targeted were not ordinary fishermen trying to make a living, but individuals operating submarines. He pointed out that owning a submarine is not something most people could afford, suggesting that those who do are part of a professional, wealthy, and ruthless criminal organization. With that, Trump highlighted the increasing sophistication of the drug trade, emphasizing that cartels have become so powerful that they now operate underwater units. He argued that negotiating with such groups is not feasible, stressing that they should be dealt with like an army, and that using military force, including bombing, is entirely justified in such situations. While his words may sound blunt, his logic stands firm. Trump used casual language to describe a matter of grave consequence, making it seem justified and satisfying to the public. This attack may have seemed sensational, but it uncovered a deeper, far-reaching network of crime, a global supply chain linking chemical factories in China to drug trafficking operations in the U.S. This investigation reveals a complex web of corruption and illegal trade stretching from China to the U.S. What exactly is the submarine? Water rats and the war laws. Let's start by addressing Trump's mention of the submarine. It's not the kind of submarine you see in movies, capable of diving hundreds of meters and launching torpedoes. Instead, this vessel can be described as a water rat, or more formally, a self-propelled semi-submersible, or SPSS. This craft represents a high-tech, ruthless tool used by drug traffickers. Here's why it's so dangerous. 1. It's highly concealed. The majority of the vessel, around 90% of it, is submerged underwater, leaving only a small cockpit and a thin exhaust pipe above the surface. From an aircraft above, it looks like a piece of floating debris, nearly impossible to spot even with high-powered scopes. Its hull is made of fiberglass, which doesn't reflect radar, making it nearly invisible. Its long range. While it doesn't move quickly, its massive fuel capacity allows it to travel from Ecuador to Mexico, traveling thousands of kilometers without needing to stop. A single load of this vessel can carry several tons of cocaine worth billions of dollars. Its self-destruction mechanism. The most devious part of this water rat is its self-sinking mechanism. The boat is equipped with scudding valves, essentially large plugs. When authorities close in, the crew can trigger these valves, flooding the vessel and sending it along with the drugs to the ocean floor. This makes recovering evidence nearly impossible. Because of the water rat's sneaky and deadly nature, U.S. forces have become more aggressive in their tactics. In the past, Coast Guard vessels would chase and warn smugglers, following a procedural justice approach. Now, with updated regulations, U.S. forces are treating these vessels as hostile targets. Since September 2025, the U.S. Southern Command has been authorized to treat these unflagged vessels, often associated with terrorist organizations, as enemy combatants. Military assets like the MH-60R Seahawk helicopter, equipped with Hellfire missiles, have been deployed to neutralize these threats by targeting the engines of these vessels, ensuring that they can't escape. This new approach is categorized under a legal term called non-international armed conflict. Previously, apprehension was seen as law enforcement, but now it's treated as an act of war, allowing military strikes without the need for a court order. While these submarines are transporting illicit goods, the source of these goods is often China. In early September 2025, the U.S. Treasury Department imposed sanctions on Guangzhou Tianyue Chemical Company, the company responsible for producing these harmful substances. The company was found to be exporting not only precursors for fentanyl, but also a highly potent substance called nitazines, which is many times more toxic than fentanyl. On September 3, 2025, in a press release, Undersecretary for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence John K. Hurley said, illicit opioids coming from China are destroying American lives, families, and communities and must be stopped. The DEA has noted that major drug cartels, such as Sinaloa and CJNG, rely heavily on these chemicals, much of which comes from China. How do these chemicals make it to Mexico? The process is complex. Chinese sellers operate on encrypted platforms, using code words to conduct business, making it nearly impossible for authorities to track. These chemicals are often disguised as everyday products like paint, industrial alcohol, or pesticides, with fake export documentation to evade customs. These goods typically don't go straight to Mexico. They pass through intermediary countries like Vietnam or South Korea, where they are repackaged and sent to ports in Mexico. Chinese officials claimed there are regulatory loopholes, where certain regions turn a blind eye for the sake of economic gain, but the impact of these gaps is devastating. The products that originate from these loopholes continue to claim lives across the globe. Dirty money from the drug trade turns into clean RMB. Once the drugs arrive in Mexico, traffickers process them into narcotics and sell them in the U.S., where they're exchanged for tons of cash, even in $20 and $50 bills. Some of these bills might even carry the lingering smell of marijuana. How do these dirty dollars turn into clean RMB to pay off a chemical factory in Guangzhou? This is where the key and most sophisticated part of this global drug trade comes into play. Chinese money laundering networks. These are experts at handling money, though unfortunately they don't use their skills for legitimate purposes. In June 2024, the U.S. Department of Justice launched a major operation called Operation Fortune Runner, leading to the arrest of 24 individuals involved in laundering money for drug cartels. To the authorities' shock, this group alone helped the Sinaloa cartel launder over $50 million in illicit money. Ann Milgram, DEA administrator, stated at a press conference, "Relentless greed, the pursuit of money, is what drives the Mexican drug cartels that are responsible for the worst drug crisis in American history." The DEA investigation uncovered a partnership between Sinaloa cartel associates and a Chinese criminal syndicate operating in Los Angeles and China to launder drug money. The money laundering method used by these networks is known as mirror trading, which is highly sophisticated and takes advantage of China's foreign trade controls. Step 1. In the U.S., drug dealers collect large sums of dirty money, cash from drug sales, and hands it over to collectors working for Chinese money laundering organizations. Step 2. These organizations sell the cash in the parallel market. Many Chinese immigrants in the U.S., such as restaurant owners, business people, and students, need U.S. dollars but don't want to go to banks or struggle with foreign exchange restrictions back in China. The money launderers offer them a better exchange rate than the banks, encouraging them to send equivalent amounts of RMB through Chinese bank accounts to designated accounts in China. Step 3. In China, the laundered RMB is then transferred into clean funds. These funds are used to directly pay the Guangzhou Chemical Company that sells precursors for fentanyl production. So what does this all mean? The dirty dollars never leave the US, and the clean RMB never leaves China. It's a seamless cross-Pacific transaction that leaves no trace in the international money transfer records. The global banking anti-money laundering systems are effectively blind to this process. This sophisticated laundering method has caused significant concern for U.S. authorities. In August 2025, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network issued a 14-page urgent notice to U.S. banks outlining 18 red flag indicators to help staff identify such money laundering activities. One example of a red flag is when a grocery store account receives large cash deposits daily, which are immediately transferred out. How does the flow of people, goods, and money work so smoothly? The final link in the supply chain is the logistics network. The transportation of precursor chemicals and the smuggling of drugs are inextricably linked to ports and the sea. In this gray world, China's influence is becoming more pronounced. The Panama Canal, connecting the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans, is a critical transit point for ships worldwide. At both ends of the canal are two major ports, Balboa Port and Cristobal Port. For decades, these container terminals have been operated by Hong Kong-based Chengkung Hutchison Holdings Limited, part of business magnate Li Ka-shing's business empire. They know exactly which ships are passing through and what they are carrying. While they may not directly be involved in illicit activities, it's not difficult for them to turn a blind eye. The US-based Center for Strategic and International Studies regularly highlights this issue, pointing out that control over ports is about more than just collecting tolls. It also involves logistics data, inspection efficiency, and national security. In recent years, the Panamanian government has been considering reclaiming control of these ports, and the U.S. has been actively supporting this effort. This isn't just about business competition. It's a struggle for control over critical information in the war on drugs. Now, back to the Ecuadorian individual who was arrested. Ecuador has become an important transit point for South American drugs heading to the rest of the world. On the coast of Ecuador, a massive fleet of Chinese distant water fishing vessels, numbering in the hundreds, is constantly operating in international waters. These fishing vessels, which form a sprawling, floating city, are legally engaged in fishing. However, drug traffickers often blend in with this fleet, operating their small water rats amid hundreds of legitimate ships, making them virtually undetectable. Even though Ecuador's small coast guard might be watching closely, it's nearly impossible for them to spot the illicit activities in such a massive fleet. What's going on with Venezuela? How are money, goods, and people all tied together? You may wonder why Venezuela keeps coming up. The reason is simple. It's the main battlefield for Trump's naval strikes. The U.S. has specifically called out a group known as Tren de Aragua, labeling them as a terrorist drug cartel. This has led to American military vessels and aircraft being stationed off the coast of Venezuela. Naturally, Venezuela didn't take kindly to this and took the matter to the United Nations, accusing the U.S. of unprovoked airstrikes. In response, they mobilized 15,000 troops, deployed naval ships, and vowed to fight drugs, directly challenging the U.S. on the issue. On one side, you have war, and on the other, law enforcement. Both are clashing along the same coastline, creating sparks and tension. Let's first look at the money. Over the last decade, Venezuela has been suffocating under U.S. sanctions. So how is it still afloat? The answer lies in China's oil for loan deals. It's like your neighbor, Mr. Wang, is on the brink of financial collapse, and you offer him a large loan with the condition that he will repay it not in cash, but by giving you the next 10 years' worth of his corn crops. Offering Venezuela several massive loans, one of $5 billion, another $5 billion, and yet another for $10 billion, all secured by oil. Officially, the money is for oil field development, not for drug cartels. But think about it. This is like giving a man on his deathbed a fiscal lifeline. Not only does it revive him, but it also keeps alive the parasites, diseases, and corrupt systems attached to him. This loan has essentially preserved Venezuela's entire chaotic gray economy. Now, let's talk about the goods. Earlier, we mentioned Panama's Great Bridge, but here we need to add Venezuela's internal dirt roads. Research reports have long pointed out that states like Zulia, Falcon, and La Guaira are key shipment points. Drugs pour in from Colombia along the border, circle through Venezuela, and then leave these ports, heading towards the Caribbean, Central America, and even Europe. Finally, let's talk about the people. The Tren de Aragua cartel has been making waves in recent years. American media constantly reports that the cartel's territorial footprint is expanding, yet the organization itself is becoming more decentralized. There's also a hidden line. Reports indicate that Venezuela has issued a type of national ID called the Fatherland Card, which controls access to food, fuel, and other basic necessities. On the surface, it's just an ID card. In reality, it's the master switch for your electricity, water, and gas. It controls your access to daily essentials. Want to pick up a bag of rice, some oil, or fuel for your motorcycle? You'll need to swipe this card. The government allocates how much you can get, and that's all. This system, developed with technology from Chinese companies, is highly efficient, tracking who gets what and even who is obedient and who isn't. With all this in mind, you can start to see the full picture. Trump's explosive actions in the Caribbean may have been loud and satisfying, but at most, they've only taken out the small fish in the big pond. Look at this whole chain. The precursors come from Chinese chemical factories. The money is cleaned through China's mirror trading techniques and bolstered by oxygen-injecting loans. The ports and waterways are managed by those with ties to China. Blowing up the fish is one thing, but the fish pond is still intact. The precursor producers are still operating, and the money laundering systems are still running. Can you eliminate all the fish? No. The root of the problem doesn't lie out in the waters, but in China itself. U.S. airstrikes may provide temporary relief, but to truly stop the flow, you need to cut off the chemical supply lines and the financial routes. Otherwise, no matter how loud Trump's fireworks sound, it's just noise, while the waters in the fish pond remain as murky and toxic as ever.